Welcome to Leadership Luminaries Lounge with Kerry and Peggy O'Neill, a podcast about the connection of leadership, philosophy, practice, and impact on society. Get ready to be illuminated.
Hello, and welcome to the Leadership Luminaries Lounge. We're here for the second part of our discussion with Dr. David Gruder. And Peggy, you want to reintroduce him for those listeners for this part?
Yeah, so welcome back. We've been having it's a fabulous conversation with some different points of view, which is what makes this all so interesting and so fun. And what David reminded us of is that he's a recovering psychologist and a professional troublemaker. And so we've got that in our midst today, and that's what's making this such a fabulous conversation. So one of the things, do we want to start with that? Was there something either of you were in the middle of? Right.
Well,
yeah, go ahead, David. Yeah, we were in the middle of something. I've got another question, but
sure.
It comes up, it does. Anyway, go ahead.
We were talking in the last episode a little bit about bridge building, and I had said that there were two aspects of that I wanted to touch on, and I didn't get to the second aspect, which is that as far as I can tell, we come into this life with three core drives. We come in with the drive to be who we truly are, which is authenticity. You see that in the youngest of children, where the classic version of that is where the parent, what parents are hoping their child's first word is going to be, mommy or daddy, right? Mm-hmm. And they're shocked when the child's first word is no. No. Well, that's an attempt on the part of the child to identify what's true and not true for them. That's authenticity. We see that in the youngest of children. The second core drive is the drive to bond with others. It's our drive for connection. And again, in the youngest of children, if we don't have a sufficiency of emotional connection, heart connection, literally children have died from the absence of that. And children who don't physically die, often in the extreme absence of connection, develop extreme psychological disorders like sociopathy and borderline personality disorder and toxic narcissism, really deep bonding disorders. Mm-hmm. And then the third core drive is the drive to influence the world around us. And that's our drive for impact. And we see that in the youngest of children too. They get their hands into all kinds of stuff that they shouldn't because they're trying to see how they impact the world around them. If we start with those three core drives, authenticity, connection, and impact, we start to get a picture of what a whole human being is. And we start to get a picture of what divine design looks like, which is authenticity in connection with higher love and wisdom, whatever an individual's term for that is, God or spirit or higher self, there are dozens of different terms for it. Christ consciousness, Buddha awareness, and if our authenticity is aligned with that, then our authenticity comes into full spiritual expression. If our connectedness, if our relationships are guided by higher love and wisdom, our relationships are nourishing and collaborative and love-filled. And if our impact in the world is guided by higher love and wisdom, then we make a positive difference in the world rather than contributing to destruction. So I think that framework transcends all specific philosophical, religious, and metaphysical perspectives that gives us a basis for coming together.
That's beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Thoughts?
Peggy, you had another question. Otherwise,
yeah, go ahead. Mine goes in a little bit different direction, but my initial thought, of course, is that's beautifully said.
One of the things that's and I identify myself and as I've gotten to this point in my life, I really like that professional troublemaker title that you had because I kind of enjoy that myself. But the idea is that I was telling some classmates I'm doing a doctoral study right now too, and I was telling some classmates that at this point in my life, I'm trying to learn how to make a difference in the world before I go home to heaven and have to explain myself. So so with that in mind, I also got some training in Lean Six Sigma. I'm a Lean Six Sigma master black belt, and my trainer for that defines quality as the persistent pursuit, and this is Dr. Greg Watson, persistent pursuit of goodness tightly coupled with the relentless avoidance of badness. And so with that in mind, I can understand now if you have the desire to go beyond your frame of reference for producing goodness without the downside, your frame goes from me to mine to society at large, which is an area that I'm really interested in being able to help with. I kind of come up with the term societal excellence, and I think that that's what's really needed right now, is that we need leaders to start thinking about how do I take my organization, my frame of reference, my position in the world, and be able to start moving in that direction. Is how do you help people, leaders, be able to envision that and then start putting it into motion?
And if you don't mind, that's part of that. My question goes with that, which is, and how are leaders responding to these conversations?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, not just responding, but engaging. Just what's happening with leaders as they share these. You share these ideas with them.
Right. Well, here's what I put to leaders initially at the 40,000 foot level to see if they're engageable by me. I mean, they may be engageable, but maybe not by me. And the question that I put to them is about what is the next species of humanity? I say to them, are you aware that the species called Homo sapiens is over? That a new species of humanity is emerging, and that there are two very divergent versions of the next species of humanity. And usually that catches them short. I mean, usually that perks them up and they go, what are you talking about?
Am I the new Neanderthal?
Right. And so then what I do is I unpack with them. And by the way, I'll telescope ahead of time that when I say what I'm about to say, the leaders who are the ones that I'm supposed to reach basically respond with, oh my gosh, I knew this. I just didn't know how to put it into words as clearly as you have. How do we move forward? So it's very engaging for the leaders that I'm called to mentor and train. And so what I say is basically we've got three different strands, three different poles today. One pole is what I call the regressionism movement, the regressionist pole, where people are longing for a romanticized version of the past, some version of the past that is selectively focused on some lovely qualities that maybe were more present in the past, at least in some people's opinions, than they are today, while selectively forgetting all of the shadow sides, all of the negative sides of the past. And the fundamental delusion is the notion that we can go backwards. We've never gone backwards. We've always gone forward.
Right.
And so are there certain perennial values and morals that need to be brought forward into the future? Well, I'm at the front of the line saying, yes, you bet there are. But that doesn't mean going back to the past. That means bringing the best of the past into a more enlightened future. So the regressionism camp is, in my perspective delusional simply because it can't be gone back to. And they've got a, like I said, they've got a romanticized, reconstructed version of the past anyway. So the other two possibilities are for the future. They're forward moving. And there was a term that was coined by Yuval Noah Harari, which is a name you may or may not be familiar with. His most well-known book, which came out about a little over a decade before we're recording this episode, was called Sapiens. And it was a wild bestseller. And he followed that book up with a follow-up book that's less known, but far more influential in ways that I'm about to describe, called Homo-deus. Now, what Homo-deus is Latin for human God. And it turns out that there are two versions of Homo-deus as potential futures for humanity, because his perspective too was that Homo sapiens is over, we're emerging into a new species. But his version of Homo-deus is what I call homo machina, human machines, where we are turned into 21st century versions of serfs, of slaves that are being controlled by and commoditized by a small group of uber powerful, uber wealthy individuals and groups that are arrogant enough to think that humanity has evolved to the point where it's smarter than higher love and wisdom, smarter than God, smarter than whatever our term for that is, the unseparated state. And that kind of arrogance is what gives rise to organizations like the World Economic Forum, for example.
Interesting.
So that's one version of humanity's future, of Homo Deus, of human God, which is, I believe, delusional, dangerous, and is going to spell the end of humanity as we know it. The other version of Homo Deus, the other future, is what I call homo-spiritus, where we are human spirits who are conduits for higher love and wisdom in the physical universe. And that's the future that I advocate. And when I unpack this with leaders and influencers, the ones who I'm supposed to impact always respond by saying, yes, I knew that, but I didn't know fully how to articulate it. And now that I hear it articulated, I want a homo spiritus future. I don't want a homo machina future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that you put the was it the World Economic Council?
World Economic Forum, the WE.
Yeah, in that that realm. So basically, you're thinking that the powers that be on the top of the economies, the global economy, see the rest of the world as serving them. Interesting.
Their arrogance is that they think that they should be in charge of determining humanity's future, and they're determining humanity's future from the arrogant place that they're smarter than God.
I mean, and kind of from that economic view, the best use of resources, right? So the economists know how better to use resources than everybody else, right?
And that they know what's best for us, but of course it's all in alignment with what's best for them.
That's right. And what propaganda does is that, in fact, there's a specific term that was coined over 100 years ago by the father of modern public relations, whose name was Edward Bernays, and the term is called manufactured consent. And what manufactured consent is manipulating people into supporting products, services, causes, or candidates while thinking they're doing that out of their own free will. And that's what the essence of propaganda is. And that's what the World Economic Forum and other groups are using to try to put people under spells that will cause them to give their manufactured consent to becoming serfs.
So Davos is the den of the devil, huh? So
by and large, there are individuals who are connected with the World Economic Forum that really are trying to bring about a different kind of future, a more homo-spiritus future, but they are not the ones that are in control of the
Right.
World Economic Forum.
That's great. Great insights there too.
So, and so you're off through the CES, the Center for Enlightened Self-Sovereignty. That's with everything that you've been telling us today. That's where you see that as we discover more about everything you've been talking about, or we're all talking about, that will start transforming, or so if those people have so much power, the World Economic Forum, was it more, what I've been thinking about lately is more that we have the masses of people that know all of this that can counter this small group of people. Is that what you're thinking too? And then your thoughts about engaging enough masses fast enough to be not to, so I don't want to be heard as an us against them, but for enough of us to become enough well informed to not be subject to the spells, to be curious enough, open enough, that we can start being in the world differently and be with these leaders differently. Probably back to the collaboration you bring forward too, that we start shifting all these relationships in alignment with everything, and that's what would support us and being able to live as Homo-deus instead of putting ourselves to death, being Homo-machina. Is that somewhat accurate, or how would you describe what it needs to happen for us to survive?
Right. Two things. One is from the 20th century luminary Buckminster Fuller. Bucky Fuller said, and I'm going to paraphrase, but it's going to be an honorable, accurate paraphrasing. He said that in order to create change, we're not going to succeed in trying to do that by opposing what we don't want. That to create change, we need to offer something that's so much more compelling than what we don't want that people basically say, where have you been all my life? And they come along for the ride. So protests have their purpose in terms of raising awareness about issues that people aren't paying enough attention to. But protesting against doesn't solve the problem. It raises awareness about the problem. Solving the problem requires a different vision that's more compelling than the problem state is. And so that's the first part of my response is I think Bucky Fuller is right about that.
I just want to add to the protesting part, it also increases resistance. So and so that keeps that energized. So it even makes it then more challenging going forward, because there's so much
the
energy.
shadow.
Yeah.
That is exactly right. That's the shadow side of protest, is that as long as we're protesting against, whatever we're protesting against stays in control, because they're calling the shots and we're just reacting to the shots they're calling by saying, no, we don't like that. Right? So they're still in charge until we have something more compelling to offer instead. And this goes back to childhood, by the way. You know, the big mistake that parents will make is not that they'll say no to a child, because children need boundaries. It's that they don't follow what no is with what yes would be.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
It's got to be complete. No is the protest. Yes is the vision, right? And so that leads to the second part of responding to your question, which is that I'm a believer in simultaneous coordinated top-down change and bottom-up change. And my metaphor for that is the Intercontinental Railway, intercontinental. When the United States rail system was being built, there was one crew that started on the West Coast and built east, and there was another crew that started on the East Coast and built west. And if they weren't really coordinated with each other, then when they got to the middle of the country, they wouldn't be able to align their tracks because their tracks would be too far off from each other. And that's what I mean by integrated top-down and bottom-up change. So top-down is elevating the consciousness and capacities of leaders, and bottom up is the grassroots citizens uniting to finally emerge from what in psychology is referred to as learned helplessness. That's the technical term for it. And what learned helplessness is a spell. It's a deeply entrenched belief that no matter what we do, whether positive or negative, it has no impact.
Mhm.
That is really fantastic. You started me even thinking about the philosophies of lean and also transformation and all those other types of things. There's another quality current day quality hero named Noriaki Kano. And basically, he has a model that he calls attractive quality. And so you can do all you want to about eliminating defects and trying to producing errors, but until you get above the indifferent level, people really just don't care. They expect you to do the right thing. If you really want to get their attention, you have to give them a better alternative than what they currently have. And so that's a really fantastic analogy. And I guess that kind of fits the worldview of that these things are really all connected and we really can learn and use things together. We've had such a wonderful conversation with you, David. And but before we go, Peggy, I want you to get the last question in, and then if you would tell us, and maybe even tell us about some of the things you're working on. How do people get to know more about the Center for Enlightened Self-Sovereignty, and maybe some of your writings to be able to help bring our consciousness up to a level of moving together better?
Sure.
Well, my questions have been answered, so I think just going ahead and responding to what Kerry. But thank you for giving me that possibility.
Well, I didn't want you to think I was hogging all the conversations.
Okay, all right. Never, Kerry.
You
Even if
didn't
I
have to
was.
worry about I hogged it.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. This is fantastic. This is so lovely for our viewers. So yeah, so go
Oh,
ahead and answer Kerry's question.
sure.
And me. I mean, me. I mean, I love this is so inspiring to me.
Oh, I'm so glad. And really, it's delightful to be in conversation with both of you. The central place, kind of like a hub through which you can access all of the various resources I have and the various ways that I do training and mentoring and keynotes and all of those kinds of things, including access to the Center for Enlightened Self-Sovereignty, is my main website, my hub website, which is simply drgruder.com, spelled with the abbreviation for doctor. So it's DRGRUDER, D as in David, drgruder.com. And what you'll find there is all kinds of stuff related to entrepreneur development, business development, leader development, self-development, relationship development, the Center for Enlightened Self-Sovereignty. All of those things are accessible through that website.
Great. We will make sure that our associate makes all of your links and that in the credits for the show. And once again, it's just been such a great opportunity to chat with you. I look forward to the next opportunity to chat, and maybe we can chat some more. I'd love to get a bit more about your philosophy and be able to see how I can incorporate that into the pursuit of societal excellence. So
Fantastic.
anything else? Any last words?
No, just as everybody can tell by watching me, I've just really enjoyed today. Thank you again, David. Thank you, Kerry. I really enjoy our time together and then enjoy being with all of us today. Thank you.
And thank you all for taking the time to listen. And as I'm trying to build my own little tagline going on the way, let your light shine.